The Cleveland Browns have been the undisputed laughingstock of the NFL for pretty much the entirety of the past 2 decades. I mean, ever since the franchise re-emerged from the ashes that Art Modell left behind in 1996, nothing has gone right for them. Not on draft day, not in the media, and not in the locker room. Frankly, they were one of the most poorly run organizations in all of professional sports. But over the past few seasons, we might be starting to witness the tides changing, as we have seen the Browns actually start to operate like a semi-competent organization, making some crafty trades, reinvigorating the fan base. They even hit on a few draft picks. High picks, but picks nonetheless. The point is, things must be markedly better when the team is bringing guys like Myles Garrett, Nick Chubb, and Baker Mayfield into the fold. And to think, just a few seasons back, we were watching Cleveland stumble into the likes of guys like Brandon Weeden and Johnny Manziel. Arguably, its heyday of organizational dysfunction. Well, I think the folks in Cleveland are pretty happy with the progress. Of course, things could be better. The Odell Beckham Jr. era in Cleveland has been a little bit of a disappointment so far, but there is still reason to believe in what the Browns are building as they head into year 2 of the OBJ and Baker Mayfield era. All of a sudden, though, the Browns' progress has left an opening on the throne of NFL draft incompetence. And slowly but surely, a new franchise has stepped out of the shadows and into the limelight of NFL embarrassment. A team that has limped to a 36-76 record since 2013, and seems to be hell-bent on chasing every last good player they have drafted out of town. If you haven't figured out which new up-and-coming dumpster fire of an NFL team we're talking about, I'll spare you the suspense. Look no further than the Jacksonville Jaguars, with their revolving door of players and what I can only imagine is an exhausted human relations department. Over the past decade, pretty much everything they've touched both on and off the field has turned sour. And in the aftermath of the Leonard Fournette debacle, it has gotten to the point that Jacksonville's head coach Doug Marrone pretty much had to issue a press release that the team was not tanking, while still gently managing to insinuate that some of the higher-ups in the organization might be. "I'm not gonna speak for anyone else," Marrone said, "but if we tank, I'm not gonna be here. If I don't do enough with this team, I won't be employed. I'm doing everything I can to make sure we have the best team to win football games." All I know is that it's never a good sign when you actually have to take the time to verbally remind your fans and the media that your organization actually wants to win. But I guess when you get one of your team's former first-round picks, who just so happens to be a former number 4 overall pick that has had 2 1,000-yard seasons during his 3-year NFL career, people are gonna start asking questions. Although, in fairness, having seen some of the crazy storylines that have come out of the Jaguars headquarters in the past few seasons, maybe the questions should have been raised a little earlier. So, sorry Jags fans if this opens up any wounds, but let's take a look back at all the mayhem down in Jacksonville and see if we can paint a picture of how the situation down there got so out of hand so fast. You sort of have to start with the absolute circus that seems to have been building in Jacksonville over the past couple of years from an operational perspective. Because while I understand that as a relatively recent expansion franchise, the Jaguars have never been one of the marquee NFL teams by any means, I still can't properly wrap my head around the new heights that their general incompetence has reached in recent years. It would be one thing if cutting Fournette had been a one-off issue, but just last season, we saw them deal Jalen Ramsey in the middle of the season. People can debate Leonard Fournette's value until the cows come home, but Ramsey is truly one of the elite talents in the league, at a position that is rapidly being viewed as a premium. We're talking about a guy that was a real difference maker from day one, and has had continued success, making 2 Pro Bowls and earning 1 first-team All-Pro selection in his 3 full seasons since being taken 5th overall out of Florida State.
Or how about the fact that they were literally taken to court by Dante Fowler for $700,000 of misallocated fines?
The list truly goes on and on. It's gotten to the point down in Florida that the players, coaches, and the ownership group all seem to be on completely different pages. A lot of the drama and distrust between the parties actually stems back to a former executive who is no longer there. Tom Coughlin, a man who will go down as one of the most widely respected coaches in NFL history, but one who, as he got older, seemed to lose touch with how the landscape of the game was changing, particularly how modern players needed to be motivated and managed. He was always a hard ass, even dating back to his massively successful days in the Meadowlands with the New York Giants. But things have changed, and coaches can't really get away with publicly shaming their players in the media the way that they used to. It's a sober truth that Coughlin could not have possibly seemed more out of touch with. Like when he publicly called out Jalen Ramsey for skipping voluntary off-season workouts to spend time with his newborn daughter. Not only does that just make you seem like a bad guy to the players that you need to engage with, but it is also very illegal to do according to NFL bylaws. They are called voluntary off-season workouts for a reason. You know, because they are optional. But that didn't stop Coughlin from thinking he was bigger than the game and attacking Ramsey through the media by saying the following: "We're very close to 100% attendance, and quite frankly, all our players should be here. Building the concept of team, working hard side by side, constructing our bond of togetherness, formulating our collective priorities and goals. Success in the NFL demands struggle. Those who have everything given to them become lazy, selfish, and insensitive to the real values of team. The hard work that many try to avoid is the major building block for the development of an outstanding football team." I mean, his language is a little coded, but you can pretty clearly see he was calling out his star defensive back, who was one of the well-respected leaders in the locker room. Yeah, Tom, that'll get your guys eager and ready to play. To say that Coughlin's decision to call out Ramsey backfired would be a tremendous understatement. It all but cemented the divide between the powers that be in the organization and resulted in Ramsey being dealt to the Rams during the middle of the season. Not to mention the fact that the NFL Players Association even had to file a grievance against the Jaguars for violating the CBA, particularly in how it views and treats voluntary workouts, and the whole ordeal essentially cost Coughlin his job. Even though the disgraced executive was eventually let go by the Jaguars because of his infractions, things have somehow continued to get worse in Jacksonville, and it has effectively been proven that the dysfunction ran deeper than we thought. In fact, it has since been revealed by the NFLPA that more than 25% of grievances filed by the NFL players since 2017 have been against the Jaguars. I mean, what kind of NFL franchise ends up being responsible for more than 25% of the league's labor relations grievances? That just seems like an impossibly high number, and a particularly damning one. The final line of the NFLPA's statement literally reads, "You as players may want to consider this when you have a chance to select your next club." And an endorsement like that is not exactly going to help your prospects as a free agent destination, is it? Coughlin's tone deafness was not limited to the way that he treated the players or his continued power struggle with the other executives in the Jaguars front office either. At a particularly low point during the 2019 season, uncoincidentally close to Coughlin's firing, he decided that calling out the players and his fellow execs was no longer enough. No. It was now time to call out the team's fans, despite the fact that the then 4-7 Jaguars had given them very little to cheer about. "We need you very badly," Coughlin pleaded to the team's fan base after consecutive divisional losses. "In my opinion, we've been on the road for 3 straight weeks and it hasn't been pretty. We need to get home. We need to get our whole thing going in our stadium and our support from everyone. It's not a time to duck your head, stick your head in the sand. We all know what the circumstances are, but these are young men. They know when they're being supported and when some extension of love is being sent their way, and they will respond. So we all need to do this." In one fell sweep, Coughlin patronized his players, ostracized his fans, and covered his own behind. Exactly the kind of guy you want leading your organization. But to be fair, it wasn't Coughlin alone that landed the Jags in this increasingly desolate situation.
Another key figure in the downfall of the Jacksonville Jaguars is Dave Caldwell, the Jaguars' recently relieved general manager. Caldwell, like Coughlin, became another mid-season firing, with Caldwell's tenure ending following a 27-25 home loss to none other than the Browns in Week 12 of the 2020 campaign. Caldwell's departure is something that seemed unimaginable a couple of seasons back, when the Jaguars looked like they had the potential to dominate the league with their fearsome defense for the foreseeable future.
That's what is just so bizarre about this team's downfall. things were trending in the right direction. The team was just one quarter of mistake-free football away from unseating the New England Patriots in the 2017 AFC Championship game. The team was built around one of the best young defensive cores in the league, and it looked like they might just have a starting quarterback in Blake Bortles, another former first-round pick who appeared to be developing into a solid passer in the league, and it all just fell apart. The fact of the matter is that Dave Caldwell presided over the team for more than half a decade, and the team has had just one season with more than 6 wins. And the football operations that he was responsible for overseeing became a downright disaster, managing their talent in particular, which is a little surprising for a guy who got his start in the NFL in player development as a scouting assistant for the Carolina Panthers in 1996, and really made his name as an area scout for the Colts from 1998 until 2007. So you would think he had the player personnel stuff down. He was fairly successful during almost all of his previous stops, too. While he was in Indy, he earned quite a reputation for having an eye for talent, and he parlayed that into an opportunity to serve as the director of college scouting for the Atlanta Falcons, where he worked from 2008 until 2011, before again being promoted to being Atlanta's director of player personnel in 2012. But for some reason, his effectiveness as a drafting executive has been inconsistent at best. And some of the ones that had been quality picks, like Leonard Fournette, Jalen Ramsey, and AJ Boye, are no longer even wearing Jaguars uniforms. That kind of track record would make even the folks in the Cleveland front office blush. It's amazing how quickly a toxic culture can sink a once promising organization. Since that AFC title game, the team has essentially fallen apart, losing 21 of its subsequent 32 games. So don't be surprised if we see the Jags end up clearing house sooner rather than later to see if they can get things back on track, because you certainly don't want to be in a position where you're looking up at the Cleveland Browns. But hey, which do you think is the most poorly run franchise in the NFL right now? Join us in the comment section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton, and hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.